And away we go. So for those of you that have been with us for any of the, gosh, how many has it been? Over 200 races thus far in the tournament. Or anybody that's seen a NMG run before, you know that we start off with the escape, which, well, to be honest, isn't all that thrilling. So, Greenham, I thought we might take this time to talk about an interesting little phenomenon that has happened with all of these top 8 racers that are left in the tournament. What have you noticed about all of their PBs thus far?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think, but all of these guys who are all in the top 20 on the leaderboards, by the way, have PB'd since the start of the tournament. You don't normally see that kind of thing, especially at this high of a level in a game like this that is so optimized. But everyone, all 8 quarterfinalists have PB'd in the tournament, so and everyone is in the top 20 at this point, so very impressive. And we've seen just not only improvement from the very top echelon of runners, but from the overall field as well. We've had a number of sub 130s before this tournament, and that number has since increased by 20 or so, I believe. I think we almost have 100 sub 130s on the leaderboard at this point.
Yes, we went from 74 sub 130s when the tournament was announced. We have 91 now. Which, when you think about how few sub 130s there were even just a few years ago, like 2 years ago, sub 130 was top tier player, and now it seems to be entry level.
Yeah, there are those who have PB'd as a result of some new tech that has been found in the game, but not entirely due to that. I would say it's definitely caused a renewed interest, even amongst top runners, to come back and start grinding this game again. We've seen even, the world record holder Zelda doing a lot of runs recently and applying the new tech. So really exciting time for A Link to the Past speedrunning.
Yeah, we've got, you were just mentioning the new tech that you'll see coming up in the Misery Mire segment, but 12 hot seconds of time save, pretty much the newest big tech since one of our runners today, ACMLM, came up with the tree Rupee tech that you'll see a little bit later. That was the last big time save that was a significant number of seconds. So these things don't grow on trees. We don't get them all that often. So when 12 free seconds show up, we will take them and run.
Yeah, it was a really cool thing to watch the development of that trick and just the strats surrounding it, and how it really kind of brought the community together and, in search of frames and, united in the search for frames. So it's always a very cool thing to see that kind of collaboration happen.
Yep. Both of our runners easily dispatched the ball and chain guard. Bluntbunny with a 255 big key pickup, ACMLM right behind him with a 256. And now we have our princess and are on our way to the back half of Escape. But yeah, you were mentioning as we were kicking this off, ACMLM and Blunt have two different play styles, as you're going to see between 2 players in this tournament. ACM has been running this game. I joke that it's been forever, but he's been running this game probably, I think, since 2012, if not earlier. He was one of the first sub 130s. And a lot of the strats that he's been using since then, they worked for him, they got him a good time, and he hasn't really felt the need to adjust them. Meanwhile, Bluntbunny is one of those, if he finds something new that can save him time, he'll adapt it, he'll bring it into his run, and you're going to see a lot of more modern variations on rooms. So they'll probably be pretty close to each other, screen for a lot of the run, hopefully, and you'll see 2 very different approaches to a lot of strats.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of ACM's decisions as to what strats he goes for, something has to save at least on the order of a second, if not more, for him to even, consider it. And whereas you'll see more so on Blunt's side, if something is saving a good portion of frames in a screen, and he's relatively consistent with it, he's going to go for it. So Won't see too much difference in terms of that here in the escape right now, but once we get the boots and really start this run, you'll start to see more of those differences cropping up.
Yeah, the only real tech that our runners have to use here in Escape is something called pumping. It's, Northwest key rat for Bluntbunny and has to throw 2 booms to get it. Meanwhile, ACM gets a much friendlier key rat that evens up things. But yeah, the only real tech we have to speak of right now is something called pumping. Basically, if you're moving north or west, you can do some perpendicular mashing to save a few frames here or there. It's not a huge deal, saves probably about 10 seconds over the course of the run, if that. But we don't have boots. That's all we can really do to get those little frames that we so desperately want to save.
Yeah, and according to their timers on their streams, they both finished at 5:53. It looked like so. Despite the little bit of difference in sync that we're seeing here, I do believe they are pretty much tied coming out of the escape section here.
Yeah, and Blunt is going to be picking up the Sanctuary Heart with the chest turn. My man.
I mean, if you are going to pick it up, you might as well add some swag to it.
But having passed through the escape, we are now on our way to the first Light World dungeon, Eastern Palace. Still are stuck with this slow walking movement, but these runners will be making the most of it. And we'll get through Eastern and then be able to go fast.
So Blunt did pick up the Saint cart there, and he'll, lose about 3 seconds as a result of that. Normally he does skip it in his runs if he's, doing RTA. But I think it's a sign of respect for obviously for the level of runner that he's going against, and for the game itself, I suppose, that he is picking up the Saint cart for that additional safety, because there are a lot of scenarios where it can save your life.
Absolutely. In a setting like this, you want to just live and live to see the next round. And picking up the Saint cart is probably a smart play. But we are, as I said, on to Eastern Palace. It's a pretty straightforward dungeon. A little bit maze-like if you've never been in here before, but not going to see many detours through these runners. You are going to see our first little trick that we do. Coming up, there's a room that normally spawns 4 Stelphos. The runners are going to enter that room, walk in a particular pattern, causing 2 of the Stelphos to get locked while the other 2 try to spawn. And you can just kill 2 and move on. Both runners executing it flawlessly.
So the next decision point we have here are whether or not these runners are going to pick up this arrow pot right here. Looks like they both will be. So they're not going to have to worry about that 1 in 8 chance that they will not get any arrow drops at the end of this dungeon. They will have enough for the Armos fight at the end of the dungeon here.
And both runners are now moving on to the next little trick of this dungeon, the poorly named Big Key Skip. They won't be skipping the Big Key, but what they will be doing is using some usefully placed damage boosts to pick up that pot, hit that switch, and activate the Big Key chest without having to kill all the enemies in the room.
Yeah, nice. And Blunt does get a blue rupee to drop. All of these popos here are in the rupee prize pack, so it goes in a very particular order of what rupees they drop. So he's got the blue one there, which is nice. You want to have, at very, very minimum 4 once you get to the rest of the rupee route where you're going to have to collect them. So getting as many drops as you can here in Eastern is only going to help you out later on.
Another chest turn by Blunt, a man after my own heart.
Wow. ACM killed 3 popos in that room and got 0 rupee drops, so a little dry there for him. He's got a few more of those enemies that are going to be in the Rupee prize pack coming up here, but sometimes they can drop in some unfortunate spots where it would just lose you time to actually go after them.
Yep. See how what they get here in the Zelda Gamer Room. ACM gets a pretty unfortunate pattern, but handles it nicely. Blunt gets a also pretty unfortunate pattern, but both of them get through. Red Rupee for Blunt. His Rupee count is now set up nicely for the remainder of the run, as long as he has no problem with tree rupees.
All right, so ACM executing the quick kill on the Armos here. Blunt right behind him, trying to prep one of those Armos with 2 arrows, such that once you get around to the end of the conga line there, all you have to do is put one more arrow into the very last one, thus bypassing the enrage phase that he would normally go into.
But both runners executing that quick kill, and now we get some boots.
Yeah, before we could only move at this measly 1.5 pixels on average per frame. But once we get the boots, we can start moving at 4 pixels per frame if you're dashing. And then there's also a small little glitch that we take advantage of in the Japanese 1.0 version, where you charge up a spin attack. You won't see ACM going for, or I'm sorry, he does do this spin speed, but you will not see him going for very many of them. This is one of the few that ACM actually does go for. But that trick just involves charging up your sword, releasing the spin, pressing A on the frame afterwards. That puts you into a glitch state where Link cannot swing his sword, but if you transition from some manual stairs onto normal land, then you start moving at that 4 pixel per frame speed, and you can actually change direction without stopping that. Whereas normally with dashing, you have to stop your dash, start another one, and then be on your merry way.
Yep, and here's one of those screens where you'll see ACM just approaches it differently. He's going to just do normal dashes to get to the library, whereas you're going to see Blunt do a spin speed both coming and going from the library. That spin speed that Blunt did only saves about 30 frames, done perfectly. So ACM just not finding it worth it. Same here, leaving. He's going to hop down and dash out, and Blunt's going to get spin speed off the stairs. But with book in hand, our racers are now going to be dashing off to Desert Palace, the second Light World dungeon and home of everybody's favorite boss, the Lanmolas.
So one small difference there is just you see that runners are switching to their items at different points. You saw Blunt there changed over to the book before he hit that water, to ensure that he wasn't actually going to dash down and touch that water, whereas ACM's using it right here on that dash up to make sure he doesn't bonk. So just kind of another interesting thing to watch for is where these guys actually do utilize their menu buffers, because a lot of time it's a very personalized thing for your speed run, and where you feel you actually need those menu buffers, whether it's to cancel a dash well or check some enemy RNG, just one of those things to kind of look out for throughout the run.
Yep. Now, here in Desert Palace, in true Nintendo level design fashion, you have been given an item, and now you get a chance to use it. A lot of wide open spaces here for dashing. Two very different approaches to that torch key from ACM and Blunt.
All right, so ACM still sitting on that 1 rupee. I'm curious to see in the Desert Circle of Pots room, that's an eastern dash. You want to go south here. Just ACM losing his way for a second there, but realigned and moving on. But since he's only sitting on 1 rupee here, he might end up picking up an extra pot in the Circle of Pots room to grab a blue rupee, which will get him to a more desirable amount. So we'll see if he picks that up here. There are some drops at the end of the dungeon that he can potentially get as well. So maybe he'll gamble for those. We'll see.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go ahead and skip him. Never seen anybody get him on the way out.
Yeah, so hopefully he runs across some friendly popos. That'll drop him some cash.
Yeah. Both runners, however, are sitting on very favorable arrow counts. They both got good drops in Eastern, ACM up to 30 arrows. Blunt going for this spin speed. Very nice.
Yep, that's a super risky one, but does save about 40 frames. Obviously, since you are in that glitch state, basically the game just thinks that you're holding A. So if you were to approach any ledge, you would just instantly hop off of it. So that's another one of those spots that is a very well-placed menu buffer to make sure he doesn't go flying off that edge and lose a minute or so.
And one other thing you're seeing here, like Blunt just did, there's a thing called key dashing where if you line up a multiple of 4 pixels away from a door and start a dash, you can hit the unlock trigger in stride, unlock the door, and continue to dash on through it. But both runners, ACM I believe had a 16:12 torch time and Blunt with a 16:13.
Yep, just a few seconds apart, heading into a very RNG heavy fight here. The direction and length of their travel that these worms have are randomized, so dealing with their patterns is very difficult because you're firing arrows and they're moving and you're moving, and the hitboxes are very wonky sometimes. So this fight can be a great equalizer here early in the light world.
That third cycle that Blunt got was very unfair.
Ooh, yeah.
And same with that cycle for ACM, but Blunt cleans it up on an early 5, and ACM right behind him.
Yeah, so it didn't change much there. They both had pretty equal fights there. So, you know, good runners, really good runners, if they get, you know, decent RNG, are going to be averaging, you know, 3 cycle, 4 cycle fights. Really, really good fight for humans is 2 cycles. So 5 there, not too bad. You're just happy to get out of there and move on with the rest of your speed run.
Yep. We talked a little bit earlier about one of the minor glitches that are allowed here in No Major Glitches, and you're about to see the second one. This one is another Japanese 1.0 exclusive called Fake Flippers. You're going to see both Blunt and ACM go for a setup here where they slash the bush and then walk northeast, and that allows them to jump into the water 1 frame's movement away from the transition. They can then move, and the game will bypass the check for flippers and allow them to continue swimming into this warp, cutting about 6 seconds of travel off their path to the Tower of Hera. ACM had a little trouble with his setup, had to go back and make sure he was lined up with the bush. And
Blunt? I think he probably, that's one of those things where you look away because you're just holding up, you know, and you're just so sure that you're already in the cave, and then you look back at the screen, you're like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, we're now leading our old man back to his, ostensibly his house, I'm guessing, home. And here on Death Mountain, there are many hearts and frames to be lost. Blunt finding his first heart loss at the hand of a cabbage there. ACM doing some dodging himself.
Yeah, this is another one of the few spin speeds that ACM does go for. Unfortunately, didn't get it on the first set there, so just decided to bail from that strat and go for dashing, which is usually a good choice. You don't want to sit there retrying it 3 or 4 times because that's just going to end up losing more than you would gain by getting the spin speed in the first place.
Yep. We're now on to the Tower of Hera, our 3rd Light World dungeon. And home to the first of the 4 bomb jumps that you're going to see. throughout the run. And possibly where you're going to see our first item dash, maybe from Blunt. We'll have to see what he decides to do here.
Yep, looks like he was going for it there, but unfortunately triggering it a little bit too early, so he's going to have to hit the crystal switch again. But ACM is going to be doing something very unique. I think I've only seen maybe 1 or 2 other runners even attempt this on a consistent basis anyway, but he pretty much always goes for this as far as I know. But he's going to attempt to do an early tile kill where he is going to kill the last one pretty much right as it spawns, which is going to cause the door to open a little bit sooner than it normally would. So he's going to use this pot and the boomerang as well to try to kill this very last tile as soon as it spawns, and he hits the map. I don't know if that despawns any tiles or opens the door any faster, but he sure knows where he is right now.
A little bit of trouble boomeranging the switch as well. I think the map has him a touch flustered, but I'm sure he'll catch his bearings.
Luckily, the boomerang comes back to you every time, so you don't have to worry about that. Alright. Blunt in the beetle room here. Very difficult room to deal with. Some very subtle RNG there. Blunt using a slightly different approach than you're going to see from ACM here.
Yeah, ACM going for a slower, but some might say safer strat where you just knock the beetles into the hole. Loses about a second over a properly executed beetle room. But here goes Blunt with his first bomb jump. Very nice. And as ACM lines his up, the bomb jumps, basically, if you are 2 pixels away from a hole or less, you can just stand there and let the bomb carry you. If you're 6 pixels away or less, you can bonk off a wall, and the bonk will add to the window that you have to get across, and that lets us get that Moon Pearl early. Meanwhile, Blunt is dropping into the Moldorm fight.
Wowzer. Okay. That was really close. Moldorm's movements can be somewhat erratic when he is like at the edges of the arena, or basically along any sort of edge, but if he's out in the middle, he's a little more predictable. You know that the tail is always going to follow the head, so you can kind of work with that a little bit. ACM did opt to pick up some safety hearts there on his way up to the Moldorm fight to make sure he stays healthy here. Nice. Looks like he finished up the fight there. Not too far behind Blunt.
Yeah.
However, he is quite short on rupees here. You see Blunt sitting at 25, whereas ACM only has 2. Finishing up the rupee route here, we're going to be using tree rupees, which means Blunt is going to pull on a tree. He's going to get some blue rupees to come out. He doesn't actually need to collect any of those, whereas ACM needs to get all 4 of those. Plus, he needs to find at least 2 more somewhere else. But once you pull this first tree here, it resets a counter. And after that reset, the game is going to start tracking how many enemies you kill and how much damage you take. So as long as you kill 4 enemies without taking any damage, there's Blunt's first right there. As long as you kill those 4 enemies without taking any damage and pull another one of these rupee trees, you're going to get red rupees out of it, which is going to give you the amount that you actually need to get into the Palace of Darkness.
Yep. And speaking of those red rupees, I want you to pay pretty close attention to how Bluntbunny collects them and how ACM collects them. You're going to see a really unique method used by ACM where he's going to throw a boom off to the north. You're going to have no idea why, and then suddenly Boomerang returns with a red rupee.
Yeah, it looks like a complete accident when it happens. And you're wondering if this guy really knows what he's doing, but I assure you he does. Alright, so at the Master Sword, it looks like we have a difference of about 16 seconds or so between these guys. So anything can definitely still happen, especially with the Light World end boss coming up here.
Yes, Agahnim is just a lovable little bundle of RNG that can certainly even up or completely separate a race at his whim.
Alright, so Blunt's got his kills all set here. He's going to pull this tree, collect all these red rupees here, and now he has the minimum of 110 that he needs to get into Palace of Darkness. Since ACM is a little short, he has a number of options available to him, so we'll see what happens. There's that boomerang throw. There's the red rupee collected without you even seeing it. It's a magic trick.
I love that. I love that strat.
Yeah, it's really cool.
See if ACM's probably going to knock a few green rupees here loose as he passes in front of the castle. See if he slows down to pick them up. Nope.
Alright, so the best thing that can happen for ACM right now is to get a really friendly drop from these gold knights that Blunt is on right now. They can drop rupees, they are in that prize pack, and so if he gets one right next to the door there, that would be superb. Barring that, he can hope for, I think, some other drops maybe throughout the dungeon, but there's also a pot that he can pick up in one of the Dark Bridge rooms. Can be a little dangerous. It's referred to as the suicide pot because it is quite dangerous to go for. ACM, unfortunately, not killing those guards with a dash there. And it looks like he got both the heart and the fairy drop, which could come into play a little bit later on in Turtle Rock. We've been talking about prize packs a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and drop a command in chat that explains those a little bit better. Yeah, that pot that Blunt just walked past there does have a blue rupee under it, so that is an option for ACM that he can pick up. You know, Blunt going for a really nice strat here, killing those red spear guards as fast as possible. Most of the time you have to chase those guys around the room a little bit, but he does it in such a way where he barely has to move and just gets off those 4 arrows. So it looks like ACM did pick up that blue rupee, so he is going to be all set because once he gets to the circle of pots, he's going to get 6 more rupees naturally, giving him 113, which will give him enough for the Dark World entry fee.
Yep. A lot of differences in rooms right there. That the room before the one ACM's in, he decided to just sword all the guards to death instead of switching to the bow. Conserves arrows, but a little bit slower. But we now come to the Agahnim fight where the attacks are made up and the frames are just lost for no good reason. Agahnim is a cycled boss, 5 attacks, lather, rinse, repeat. First is a guaranteed reflectable energy ball. Attacks 2, 3, and 4 are a 50-50 energy or blue ball that cannot be reflected. 5 is a lightning. The ideal is obviously 0 blue balls. The worst you can get is 15. And Blunt starts off with a blue ball.
That's just so like Blunt. That's one thing I really kind of wish I had kept track of or had people keep track of was just the blue ball statistics. It would have been a really interesting thing to go back and see like who gets the worst RNG and what the average is overall for the field and everything. Because I'm sure Blunt would fall far outside of the average because he seems to get the worst of it a lot of times.
And yet this time...
And yet...
and yet
I reverse commentator cursed him. Let's go.
That was 1 blue ball for Bluntbunny, 6 seconds lost at the whims of the wizard. Meanwhile, ACM, I believe, has had 1 thus far.
Okay, then. That makes it easy, I suppose.
1 blue ball for both runners.
So Aga will not be deciding this race today, which is always a good thing to see.
Yep. But, here's another screen. The ACM's just going to go ahead and do a different route. He learned this game on the US version without spin speed, learned how to do this screen, and by God, It's good enough for his 125. Meanwhile, Blunt is on his way to Palace of Darkness to pay off the greedy little monkey.
That is a way off of the pyramid.
US version strats, my friend.
Oh, okay, never mind. I thought Blunt got the bad RNG where the Moblin comes up, but he was on the right, so he was fine.
Meanwhile, ACM is making his way into the Hedge Mage to collect his monkey. And Blunt is into Palace of Darkness. Palace of Darkness is the home of the second bomb jump that you're going to see in the run, and probably the most complicated. The hammer jump is a 30 to 40 second time save, depending on how well you execute it. And it is, you know, Bluntbunny pretty much wrote the textbook on it. I'd say it's about 4 years old, maybe 4-year-old trick, but really difficult to execute well. But you'll probably see both of these runners just breeze through it.
Yes, it does require some very precise placement of both A-Bomb and Link himself, all while the bridge is falling. So you are on a timer, but luckily the bridge stops whenever you do pause and switch items, so you'll probably see our runners utilizing the pause menu to buffer and check their position to make sure that everything is correct and that they're going to get boosted across the gap properly.
Would you say that the placements are Y-axis pixel perfect?
I definitely would not use that many words to describe it.
But speaking of the hammer jump, we are ready to watch Blunt execute it. So he's going to dash in, grab a pot here, and use it to kill that helmet. Stop on a particular pixel, place the bomb, throw another, and then get back to another position where the bomb will carry him across safely to his hammer.
Yep, nicely done. Just a few extra pause buffers there, but overall really well executed. ACM is coming up on his try now. And getting a full magic drop too. When that happens, yeah, you know something went wrong in Aga Tower.
He is just working his way through the prize pack.
But really nice hammer jump from ACM there. And now Blunt is coming up on one of the more difficult rooms in Pod, in my opinion, to do quickly and consistently, the Mimics, and our first encounter with these enemies who are tied to Link's movement in a very peculiar way. See Blunt using a combination of a dash buffer to manipulate their movement, as well as the animation of the bow itself to actually get the Mimics in the right spot so that the arrows run into them as quickly as possible.
Yep, the red Mimics mirror your movement, the green Mimics follow it. And good Mimics rooms are the sign of a good player, generally. Blunt, by the way, got a nice 5-arrow drop from the top Mimic, which is going to help out his arrow routing. ACM not using a ton of arrows in Aga's Tower is still ahead of Blunt on the arrow count.
Did Blunt get a bomb drop too? Because I know he picks up both bombs at the hammer jump, but that would put you at 7 normally, so I feel like maybe he got a drop from a jelly or something that I didn't see, so that's kind of a nice thing to have.
Yeah, he must have.
Alright, Helmosaur requires 17 hits with the hammer to break his mask off to trigger the second phase. During the first phase, he can spit out these fireballs or whip his tail at you, but during the second, he's going to do both of those, so it requires some very good movement and then some precise hammer hits here in the second phase that Blunt is going for. Helmo's being pretty friendly with not spitting out any fireballs there, so some good RNG.
Yep. Meanwhile, ACM entering his fight, he's going to do it a little bit differently. Hold the sword out to continually face Helma and hit those 17 hammer hits on the mask. Kind of protects you from running straight into him. It's a little bit slower, but it is the strat most runners use. And then he's going to go for those hammer hits. Very nice executed fight by ACM. 3 quick hammers and a spin. Very nice.
Yep, very clean, and finishing with full health there, which is also a very good sign that the fight went well.
Now, if you grew up playing this game or have picked it up casually, perhaps you've actually hit that X button, looked at the map, and seen those flashing indicators telling you where the dungeons are. And you would say, hey, the second dungeon is Swamp, so that's where they're going to go next, right? Well, no. We are going to be heading straight off to dungeon number 4 now to get an item that lets us get the tempered sword quicker. So we will be heading to dungeons 2 and 3 later, but for now we're off to Thieves Town.
All right, so coming out of pod, looks like we have 22 seconds separating our runners currently. So definitely lots of room for that ground to be made up for ACM.
And we just saw Blunt executing our third minor glitch, the item dash. By pressing A and Y on the same frame with certain items, you get nice results. In this case, with the hammer, you are able to dash through all of those pegs, plowing them down without having to stop and hammer each one.
And then if you check out Blunt's screen here, he's probably going to pause to the mirror, check his position, and if he does everything correctly, this warp animation is going to be about a half second faster. Looks like he got it there. With the camera aligned on a very specific horizontal position, you actually shorten that warp animation by 34 frames each time. So as long as you are one of the 2 out of 8, or every 8 pixels that are good, then you get that shortened warp animation. It's pretty nice. It happens a number of spots throughout the run since you go between the worlds quite often. So a nice thing to know where all of those quick warps are.
Yeah, ACM was, I think, 1 pixel to the left of getting the quick warp. But both of the runners getting the flute with the minimal amount of digs.
An impressive feat, to be sure. You see Blunt is slashing his sword here, and you may wonder why. You may think that it's an accident, but he's actually setting up for a spin dash here, which is a very, very small time framer. that was almost a word. Small frame saver. About 10 frames if it's done really, really well. Probably more like on average 5 frames. So really not that much time at all, but Blunt likes going for it, and it does look cool. So.
Yep, and ACM didn't even go for the spin speed on the Usain Bolt screen. He is truly a US 1.1 boy.
I really don't think that's a bad way to learn either, because I think a lot of people tend to focus on those really small time savers when they first start out, and understandably so, because it's the stuff that looks cool. They're the fun tricks to perform. So, but as you kind of get more advanced in your speedrunning, you start to understand that you should probably be putting your time and effort in other places that are going to save you some more time. So, I think learning on the English version, yeah, you're going to lose a lot in text, but you're not so worried about the minor glitches that really don't save that much. So when you do end up switching over to that version, I think you'll be much more prepared for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it allows you to focus on execution and not waste a ton of time on saving a dozen frames here or there, seeing the forest for the trees and whatnot. But we are now here in dungeon number 4, Thieves Town. There are a lot of rooms that you're not going to see. Those first 4 big rooms are supposed to be a maze of overpasses and underpasses, but we just are going to see the least amount of it possible, grab the big key, and move on to the rest of the dungeon. featuring a fantastic room here, the Hellway. Bluntbunny getting... Ooh, he got the God Pixel, but then just got shafted with RNG at the top of the room.
Yes. Very aptly named Hellway because of that feature exactly. It's so disappointing when, number one, you get the pixel. Number two, you see that the bottom Patrick star is giving you good RNG, so you can actually, continue dashing up on the God pixel there. But then you just get, screwed by the rest of the room. ACM not hitting the God pixel there. It didn't look like he had very good RNG to go for it anyway. So Thieves Town, at least the Hellway, not being very kind to either runner here.
Yep. High-fiving on the staircase. And now both runners are off to the basement of Thieves Town, wherein we will pick up Strange Lady hanging in jail cell.
Sounds like a good basis for a system of government.
I'm pretty sure this is Link's Tinder date gone wrong.
Should have swiped. Wait, what direction is
it? I'm married. I don't know. And Blunt has gotten his Titan's mitts. The reason that we are coming to this dungeon first is for that very item. And now we are off to face the boss of the dungeon who, spoilers, it's the girl. And this blind fight is... people call it a scripted fight. Basically, if you perform the same actions every time, blind will perform the same actions every time. So there's a script that was devised by a runner named Cypher, who is famous for his Mega Man 2 exploits recently. But he came up with this way to proceed through the blind fight and get your 9 hits in and get out without taking any damage.
Well, I'm excited for ACM's fight here, based on what he said in chat.
And he releases a spin.
That's too easy. Yeah, this is going to be... See, he just wanted to up the difficulty level of the fight here, give himself a little more of a challenge. It's really just, it's so boring just standing there and letting blind run into your sword over and over again.
Yeah. Meanwhile, if you want to look to the left of Blunt's timer, that light show isn't just to look nice. That is Blunt mashing his way through the text. It's one of the unseen things when you watch a speedrun like this, but the way that this text advances, you actually do have to be on your mashing game. You can easily lose a second in each cutscene if you're mashing through lazily. I distinctly remember a race last tournament between Blunt and Pincus, where Blunt finished a boss before Pincus, but Pincus mashed his way past Blunt in the cutscene.
Oh, Blunt didn't just press A there. Which is correct in the strat, but unfortunately he still messed it up.
Now, Blunt having picked up the world's most useless frog. He's a frog, but he can't jump down off the ledge. Is going to take that frog back, have it turned back into a man, and get a sword out of the whole ordeal. And this whole exchange, getting the early Tempered Sword, is pretty much the reason why we do Thieves first. We're going to head off to Skull Woods next. The boss of Skull Woods and a few of the rooms in Skull are a lot easier with the Tempered Sword. The Argus fight in Dungeon 2 is a lot easier with the Tempered Sword. So, getting the Tempered Sword as quickly as possible is a pretty big time save. So Blunt leaving the Smith's house with his sword at 4427.
Yeah, it's the fence dash.
Gets his first 300 rupee chest. And he leaves at 44.59, so 32 seconds right now separate the runners. And Blunt is on to Skull Woods. Now, casually, the Skull Woods dungeon is pretty confusing. You've got a lot of entrances and exits and holes you can fall in, but we're going to skip most of it, go where we need to go, and do not much else. But first, the best room in the game, the mummy statue room.
I protest, sir.
I mean,
Blunt made it look like it's the easiest room in the game, that's for sure, right there. But yeah, mummies are highly unpredictable enemies who do not necessarily respond to your weapons as you would expect them to sometimes, and can lead to a lot of frustration.
And Skull is also the home to our third bomb jump. This one that Blunt is about to pull off, pretty much identical to the one that we did in Hera. Also a good mummy statue room for ACM. And then Blunt is going to fall into that hole to leave the fire rod room, so he has iframes and can just walk right on past that Rupee. Meanwhile, ACM is entering his bomb jump, and Blunt is about to enter the back half of Skull. And here in the back half of Skull, we have another really fun room, this Mummy Hellway, that Blunt executes pretty well.
Here's another tough room, especially given that mini Moldum RNG, the Vine room there. It'd be really tough to react to what that mini Moldum is doing sometimes.
Yep. And speaking of tough to react to RNG, we've got the Mothula fight. See if Blunt is able to get a quick kill.
Ooh, come down.
Very nice.
Very cooperative Moth for him.
Yeah.
We have ACM's version of the Mummy Hellway. Just as effective. Gets through it quickly as well.
Yeah, the Mothula fight, if you let it get away from you, it can go downhill very quick, but Blunt had it over with in a flash. Let's see how ACM handles it. Left-facing conveyor, only gets a single dash up, but gets the remaining 3 slashes pretty quickly. Very nice fight from ACM.
Well, that's refreshing to see.
Got 1 blue ball from both. Pretty cooperative Moths from both. It looked like 48-20 sword up for Blunt.
Okay, we might see our first instance of the glitch that is behind, well, I guess you can't really call it a glitch, but the abuse of the game's memory that we are using here that will be used to great effect in Mire, to minimal effect somewhat here in the Ice Palace segment. You may have heard that Blunt played the ocarina there before he transitioned off of that screen. And what this did was set a particular variable in the game that controls the altitude of some things. It's known, you know, we've been referring to it as the altitude variable, but basically sets that value to 0. And this altitude variable is actually connected to the area of effect damage that the fire rod triggers when it actually connects with something. So by setting this value to 0 here, it's going to cause that AoE effect to happen right where the fire rod hits, which is going to allow us to do the very first room of Ice Palace about 4 to 6 frames faster than you normally would be able to on average. There is an optimal strat that's, you know, pretty comparable to doing that, but this is just makes it pretty much 100% consistent.
Yeah, normally we're focused on trying to find ways to glitch the game, but this is actually unglitching it. The game doesn't clean up that altitude variable whenever you flute, but by refluting, we clean it up and we let the fire rod do what it's supposed to. Later, we're going to be doing that backwards. ACM didn't go for the... Did he get the quick orb?
I don't know.
Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah, you got it. I didn't see if you bonked or not. But yeah, in Zora's domain here, this is some of the toughest overworld movement in the game. These dashes are very, very tight, and you have to stay on this very narrow corridor of shallow water. And then, you know, these Zoras can somewhat randomly hit you out of your dashes if you're a little bit too slow in parts. And jumping into the water each time loses quite a bit of time, so obviously you want to minimize doing that as much as possible. So very tough screen, and the fact that it lasts for almost a full minute definitely warrants spending some time on it and practicing it.
It looks like a 36-second difference between Blunt and ACM right now, based off of Flipper's pickup.
Yeah, you see Blunt there, shot that fire rod, and the AoE effect killed that Freezor pretty much instantaneously, so...
Oh, Blunt waiting.
That was a really good hesitation there, yeah. If he would have transitioned that screen on the same frame that enemy was dying, he would have shifted some of these sprites here in Ice Palace, and he wouldn't have actually been able to proceed with the rest of the dungeon, and would have had to mirror out and go back through, so... Good heads-up play there to wait for that jingle to finish and for him to actually go downstairs.
And Ice Palace is the home to our fourth bomb jump. This one it's pretty easy to pull off once you've practiced it a little bit. Definitely easier than a hammer jump, but it saves a lot more time. Normally, you kind of got to do 2 or 3 passes through Ice Palace, get the big key, get the blue mail, and whatnot. But by doing this bomb jump that Blunt is going to be doing, and ACM later, it basically bypasses the whole puzzle element of the dungeon and lets you go straight to the final boss.
Yep, so Blunt using a dash turn there to get really close to the edge and then turn away quickly. Unfortunately, wasn't on the right pixel. Relining things up now, using the hammer to try to buffer his movements there. He's basically trying to move down and then hit the hammer 1 frame after so that he only moves down 1 pixel at a time to get himself on the right position there. But second try through, no problem, but that's going to give ACM a little bit of a window to make up some time here.
Yeah, not only do you have to go and do the whole setup for the bomb jump again and waste a bomb, but then on your second try you have to wait for the fire bar to go around, because you'll otherwise just kind of hit it when you bonk.
Looks like ACM is going to get it first try here, so he does end up making up a little bit of time there. Does take a little bit of extra damage, but he should be fine throughout the rest of the dungeon here.
Yeah, also does not menu to hammer and does not do the hammer dash. Picks up a heart there. Probably a pretty wise decision in a race situation. And Blunt dropping into the Cold Stare fight. Cold Stare hits fast, hits hard when those puffs get away, but Blunt's going to try to trap him in the corner with a spin. Charge up his sword, poke. Oh, yep. Poke and then slash in the corner. Very nice. One almost got away, but cleaned it up.
Yeah, that's one of the more difficult versions of the Cold Stare fight, the double poke and the spin in the corner. But Blunt, clearly a pro at that. Not actually sure what strat that ACM goes for. We may see single poke, we may see 6 slash, so...
I think we're going to see 6 slash.
Yep, setting up the spin pretty much the same way, but then just opting to slash the puffs in the corner 6 times. Pretty equivalent fight. The time difference is pretty negligible between those 2 strats if both are executed relatively well.
Yeah, if Cold Stare gets away, those big puffs will hit you for 4 hearts of damage. The game expects that you have picked up the blue mail, the item of this dungeon, but that's slow, so we don't get it. And ACM made up a good chunk of time there. Bird picks up Blunt outside of ice at 5503. I believe there were 36 seconds that separated them at Flippers. Actually, it looks like it's still 36 seconds.
Both these guys are going to be heading into, as you mentioned earlier, what is supposed to be the developer-intended second dungeon of the run. So a lot of the enemies in here aren't going to be doing a whole lot of damage. That doesn't mean that they won't hit you, because they are full of RNG and terror. So you can definitely just get hit for small amounts here and there, and you can probably be taken pretty low, but typically you're not too afraid of dying in this dungeon, but it can be just kind of a nuisance just getting pecked to death.
Worth mentioning, Blunt got the anti-fairy skip in the water dam.
Yeah, that anti-fairy skip requires some very precise movement. You have to be very fast and also very good with your dash cancels. Saves, I don't remember the exact time, but maybe like 1/3 of a second, something like that. One of the more difficult movement-based tricks in the game. Oh, some bad RNG there with that red Salphos, but Blunt did kill it, which is actually going to reduce his amount of lag frames that he just got there. So one of the weird quirks about this game, and also true of this next room that he's coming up on. The more enemies you kill here in this room, the less lag frames you're going to get in the room above when you actually are filling the Keypot room here with that switch.
Yeah, it's worth knowing that the way that this game tracks dungeon rooms is in what's called super tiles and sub tiles. For instance, this big room that Blunt is in is one full super tile. It's 2 screens tall, 2 screens wide. But then some of them are broken up into these sub rooms, like what Blunt's in now. When he's in this room, the room below is actually loaded as well. So by killing those enemies in that other room, it lets that water raise with a little bit less lag. Question in chat about quick warp setups. I just dropped the images for all of the quick warp setups in the chat. Now, Blunt is on his way to get the big key, which will lead to one of the funner items in the game, the hook shot, which opens up a few other interesting pieces of tech, one of which you'll see on the boss fight.
Yep. So we referred to some item dashes earlier, where you're pressing A and Y the exact same time to both use whatever item you have equipped and dash. Most often we see this with the hammer, but the hookshot works as well, and also triggers the super speed state that you also achieve by doing a spin dash. It puts you into the exact same state. So we use that here on the room that Blunt is coming up on to actually be able to pick up this pot that's in the top left here just by pressing A once. Normally you'd have to hit it a few times while you're holding straight up here. But by hook dashing there, it puts us into that funny glitch state and allows us to pick up that pot consistently just by pressing it.
Yeah, those 2 random sword slashes that Blunt just did were actually a timing mechanism. He knows that if he slashes twice there, if he enters the room and the jelly is electrifying, the 2 slashes will let him then immediately start his dash north and kill the jelly just as it finishes electrifying. Just those little pieces of knowledge about individual rooms that help make both of these runners where they are on the leaderboard.
Yeah, there's so much of that in this game, for sure. It's something that comes over time, not necessarily something you can just easily see in a tutorial, because you have to just experience the pain of failing that room over and over again before you learn how to fix it. But Blunt is coming up on the Argus fight here. We alluded to a potential glitch that this hook allows you to do, and by hook dashing here, Blunt is actually able to kill those puffs just by rehooking in that glitch state, because the game still thinks that your sword is out, and you can just kill those puffs with a single poke there. If you do this quickly enough, you can actually bypass the hurricane phase where Argus is actually spinning his puffs around him, which saves about 6 or 7 seconds over the normal just hook and slash strat, which we will most likely see from ACM.
Yeah, ACM's just going to hang out down here by the door in the bottom half of the room and hook the puffs, give him with 1 slash, and then move on. He is down to 3 hearts.
Yeah, getting hit by Argus himself here is 2 hearts, I believe, so as long as he doesn't take 2 hits from that, he'll be fine. Kind of a weird thing about Argus when he does raise up like that. You'd think that you'd just be able to stand directly above him because it's a 2D game, right? But the game tries really hard to convince you that it knows what's going on in terms of depth, but it really doesn't, and Argus just hits you anyway, so do not stand above Argus when he is raising up.
.101.47 sword up for Blunt. And now Blunt is going to go on a shopping trip, and then you are going to see the start of the newest tech to hit the Link to the Past scene, the spooky action glitch. And the setup for that will start as soon as he lands after fluting to 6. But first, he's going to detour up here to Death Mountain, pick up the ether tablet that is needed to pick up the ether medallion from the tablet that's needed to enter Misery Mire, and then he will head down to Flute Spot 8 to grab the ice rod.
Yep, looked like a 102.24 sword up for ACM, so that's going to put the runners at about a 37 second difference, so ACM lost only another second to Blunt on that dungeon, so maintaining the gap pretty well, and that's really all you have to do in a race like this. Just make sure you stay close, and kind of at a certain point, you have to hope that your opponent's going to make a significant enough mistake to where you can actually catch up a little bit.
Yeah, ACM does his shopping trip backwards. This way, if he gets hit by the crabs while picking up the ice rod, he can try to farm a heart or a fairy on top of Death Mountain. Meanwhile, Blunt is doing ether and then ice. Okay, the no tracker command is my new favorite command.
I thought that would be somewhat useful. All right, so spooky action time. Blunt is going to walk below the rock here, which is going to cause the bird to go off at a very specific altitude. And we really want to maintain that altitude value, because that altitude value is going to allow us to hit some crystal switches with the fire rod that we would normally have to, track all the way up to the top of the room, or in some instances go into a completely other room to actually hit it. But, speedrunners like to avoid that if at all possible, so we have found a way around that.
Yeah, when you fire off the fire rod, it decides where the area of effect goes by taking the position of the fire rod, subtracting 8 pixels to get to the center of the fire rod sprite, and then subtracting the altitude variable. I'm not sure why it does that, but what it does is it causes the area of effect to be able to be displaced in a spooky way.
Blunt with a 2-cycle Mire 2 there. Optimally, you want to make sure that those Wizardrobes only spawn 1 time, So Blunt lost a little bit there. We'll see if ACM can one cycle those Wizard Robes to make up a little bit on him.
Ooh, ACM with the Rogue Popo going to the bottom left, but was able to track him down.
All right, so we'll get another good check-in on the runners' times here when they light this fourth torch here. Blunt's rolling in with a 105.23 torches time.
Rolling in. Yeah, so ideally, a player of this caliber, Blunt or ACM, can reasonably finish the game in about 19 minutes or so from lighting that fourth torch. So Blunt's still on a good 124 pace, and ACM looks like he will be on a probably a low 125 pace.
Ooh, that was close. Those bomb slugs there that ACM was just dealing with do 4 hats of damage if they touch you, so it's a little sketchy if you do run into one of those, because you do have to take some intentional damage not only later in the dungeon but also on the boss fight itself, so you want to be pretty healthy coming through the latter half of Mire here.
Speaking of intentional damage, Bluntbunny going for the Spark Gamble, getting the bad boost, but still getting out of the main hub. And we are just a few rooms away from the spooky action glitch in full effect. What you're going to see, pay close attention to when Blunt paces down the cane block in the dark switch room. He's going to kick up dust from a dash really quick. It's going to do a little bit of sprite slot data swapping, or placing data in a sprite slot that we want, and that is going to make sure that that altitude variable we set with the duck when fluting to 6 is in the right place, which will let the fire rod spook its crystal switch to the next room over.
Yep, looks like Blunt got the setup there. He did get hit, but most important thing is, placing that block, as you said, with that dash sprite on the screen so that it doesn't overwrite the slot with the altitude variable. So he's going to be hitting the spike here, which actually triggers the crystal switch that is above that spike. And now he's going to hit the side of these antifairies here, which is going to trigger the crystal switch in the room above. And now he's going to shoot this torch from the left here, which is going to hit that crystal switch that you see directly above. And that's the new tech.
It looks so simple, and it's so fantastic. 12 seconds. 12 seconds saved. But now we are at the scene of the crime from the last time these two raced in an NMG tournament, the Vitreous fight. Blunt is going to get a hot 0 cycle, get in there, spin to win, 8 arrows to the eye. See ya.
Yep, no problems on the fight. ACM now doing his attempt at the spooky action, gets the first spike. Gets the most important room there, the bomb wall room. We used to have to actually use a bomb to blow up a wall and go into the room above. Can you imagine?
How barbaric.
I know, we were so unevolved back then.
But ACM now entering the Vitreous fight. This is where the race in 2016 went sideways. Let's see how he does. Gets in there, spins the eyes. Looks like this time he's going to get the 0 cycle with no problem. Not going to see a repeat of last time.
Yep, gets his revenge. On that very last spin, that last spin there on those eyeballs can be a very, very tense moment, because you can get some very erratic movement from those last eyeballs, especially if you were slow at all on your first 2 spins. So,
and those little eyes do 4 hearts of damage for some ungodly reason.
All right, so Blunt on his way to Turtle Rock now. We'll see if he goes for the drive-through version of the Waffle House. Gets the bad RNG with that leftmost squirrel there, so decides to just bail out of the strat. That's one of the most difficult RNGs to handle when that squirrel blocks you in that way, so doesn't even bother with going to drive-through there, and it's probably the smart play there to actually just get through that screen as quickly as possible.
109.37 sword up for ACM. Now we're on to the hottest peg puzzle since Cracker Barrel, the entrance to Turtle Rock.
I really want some biscuits and gravy now.
Dude, I know, right? With a couple of fried eggs over easy.
I am in.
One thing you saw there, Blunt actually did an item dash with the Quake medallion. That also puts him in the glitch state, and it let him get a free quick hop off the top of Turtle Rock. Just a little frame saver there.
So a little bit earlier in Aga Tower, we were remarking about the fact that ACM got some drops from some guards. He got a heart and then a fairy, and then when he was in the Palace of Darkness, we saw on the Hammer Jump Bridge, he got the full magic drop from that same prize pack. Generally, what we try to do is actually maintain that prize pack drop until we get to T-Rock. If you kill an enemy with a dash, it doesn't actually advance the prize pack. So I'm pretty sure Blunt has maintained that setup, and the pokey enemies that are in this dungeon are in the same prize pack. So you've got a few chances for drops from these guys. So there's the heart for Blunt. Next is going to be the fairy, and then the full magic after that. So that is kind of a nice thing to have here in T-Rock, especially dealing with some of these rooms, because chomps here do 4 hearts of damage apiece every time they hit you.
And then we talked about the strat differences between ACM and Blunt. You saw ACM grab that heart from the pot there. He's going to go ahead and hook through these crystal rollers, the same as you did see from Blunt, but he's going to menu to the mirror and just mirror out. He's going to take a 3-second time loss to mirror back, but it allows him to not lose the 3 hearts damage boosting through the rollers.
Exactly, and so he doesn't have to be so concerned about the fact that he got those drops earlier, because obviously he has maintained full health here. Not having the full magic is kind of bad, but I think he'll be fine with maintaining that from here on out.
There's Blunt's fairy.
Yeah, that's a really nice time to see it too.
I bet Blunt was very happy to see the top right pokey RNG there. ACM having some troubles with the chomps. Ija wanna get a.
Yep, but putting those sword beams to good work. He manages to not take any damage in that room, so both are runners at full health here in T-Rock. I feel like that's a rarity.
And getting the God pattern in Pokey too.
Yep, and the full magic drop there. That's really nice. And getting the key dash here for extra points.
And you're also going to see ACM probably menu to the fire rod here.
Yep, and that's also why he hit the crystal switch on his way out of the chomps room as well, so that the pegs would already be down, so he could just dash all the way through, switch to the fire rod, and then take out that pokey.
Yeah, and he's also gonna, if he gets an unlucky RNG in Pokey 2, you'll see him spin one pokey and fire rod the next. So again, just the differences in these players. You know, their PBs aren't that far apart, but the style of play is vastly different.
Wow, that laser skip from Blunt. That is a very tight window, and I'm pretty sure it's a frame-perfect dash cancel, and then heading the other direction to get past that laser. Only the front part of the laser can actually damage you, so abusing that fact to sneak by it.
Speaking of sneaking by things and abusing them, you are seeing Blunt enter the Trinex fight. He's going to go left here, dash right onto the back of Trinex, and backdoor him with the Ice Rod. Sneak over to the right side and take out the Ice Head with the Fire Rod. And then charge up a spin, wait for the shell to disappear. It's a well-known thing that you spin when the shell is gone. Double spin, and another slash. Trinex is dead, and you didn't even get a chance to get to know him.
Here you see ACM's version of the laser skip, where he just stares fate in the face and challenges all takers, and just times it to where he just walks past the laser. So very confident play. Also a very unique strat there for ACM in that peg puzzle room.
ACM going to go with the older but slightly safer Trinex strat. Just go ahead and kill him from the front. Handles it well. Wait for the shell to disappear. Drop a double spin. And very nice.
I believe that was a 1:15:51 sort up on T-Rock for Blunt.
Yep. You saw Blunt menu to the hook shot is in between the phases of the Trinex fight, or at the end of the Trinex fight, to get that hook speed leaving Turtle Rock. Just another little frame saver.
ACM letting us know in chat that T-Rock was only plus 8 seconds from his gold split, the best he's ever done that segment. Chomps were a large part of that, obviously, but always a good feeling when you can be that close to your gold in any run, especially a race.
Yep. But now we are on to objectively the best dungeon in the game, Ganon's Tower. This is the final exam of the speed run. You have... Okay, Blunt. That threw me for a bit. That is not...
Blunt needs to pull out the cheat sheet here for his final exam.
But all of the items, all of the tech that you've learned thus far, you're going to have to use it all quickly and efficiently to get through Ganon's Tower without dying. A lot of really difficult, but really fun to practice and really fun to execute rooms.
Yeah, Ganon's Tower, I like to say, is a little miniature speedrun in and of itself. It kind of has its own segments, and you're kind of almost treating it the same way. You know, you're paying attention to your deltas at certain points. You know, one such point is usually after you finish up the first refight of the Light World boss that Blunt is going to be coming up on here, which is going to be Armos. It's going to be on ice, but that is the kind of the first major quote-unquote segment of G Tower itself. And you kind of look at the time that you mirror after you grab the big key there. We're going to be going for the same quick kill here as we did in the Light World, where we're prepping the Armos that we kill last, hopefully with 2 arrows. Oh boy, this is a difficult fight to recover from when it goes wrong. You're fighting the ice physics, obviously, and then the Armos who are jumping around everywhere, and then obviously this guy's going to regenerate his health. Blunt puts 3 arrows into it and finishes it up. That could have an impact on the Ganon fight. I'm not quite sure if that was long enough, but
it was long
see.
enough. That was long enough, yes.
So that gives ACM a little bit of a window here. If he can have a really good Ice Armos fight, he'll make up a pretty good chunk on Bluntbunny here. We saw the difference coming out of T-Rock was a little bit over 1 minute, so it's going to need to make up a little more even past Ice Armos here to have a chance in the race, but anything can happen from here on out.
Yeah, Blunt ate 3 hearts of damage in that Armos fight and is going to eat 3 more on that spike floor. You don't really want to take a ton of damage because the rooms coming up here, the Gauntlet and beyond, there are some things that will sap your health quickly if things go astray.
Looks like ACM is going to get the quick kill here on the Ice Armos, so he is going to be able to make up that time on Blunt. And now Blunt is going to be coming up on the Gauntlet, a series of rooms where you have to kill every single enemy in the room before you can actually advance to the next one. And each enemy has their own particular RNG, and then the developers decided it'd be a good idea to just, you know, utilize all the sprites that they made for this game. And you've got conveyors, you've got spikes, you've got BMOS, and eventually you've got some ice as well to deal with.
Yeah, every room adds something. You start with conveyors, then you add in BMOS, then you add in spikes, then you add in ice, and then you add in a shooter turret at the end. It's just fun, fun, fun. But Blunt gets through with relatively little issue, and he is on to his second Light World boss refight, Land Mode 2. Much simpler this time, because the Fire Rod will quickly dispatch.
Does one cycle the fight, although he did use an extra Fire Rod shot, so he will be grabbing this small magic pot here to ensure that he has enough magic for the Torches room coming up.
Yeah, and you're going to see two really cool rooms here. Not with the boomerang, but yes, with the cane. Going to place a cane block and explode it to take out the Wizrobes all in one go, and you'll see it again here on Wizrobe 2 in a moment. ACM having some trouble in Gauntlet 2 with the Stelphos going rogue in the top left. He's able to get through G3 without much of a problem. G4 is pretty clean.
Nice torch dash there on the last one. The third to last, or third torch, I'm sorry.
Nice G5 ice skating from ACM.
Oh, that's an interesting setup by ACM there. Doesn't even bother with the tempered sword spin on the first one and just uses Fire Rod for the whole fight, which means, yep, he's going to pick up that small magic pot there. Blunt using his last bomb here to open up the wall.
And then he's going to grab this key out of this chest, hook-shotting past the danger. And we're on to our third Light World boss refight, the Moldorm 2 fight. Dash and a spin should take care of him. Very nice.
Alright, at the very, very top of Ganon's Tower here, we have our very last Light World boss refight. It's Agahnim, but there's two more of him, which are clones, which always shoot energy shots. So we're going to be looking to reflect 6 of those into the real Agahnim here.
This is the geometry portion of the final exam.
Ooh, almost gets 3 on that. Would have been really impressive with that RNG.
A good pattern here. Good pattern.
It looked good, but then he got a blue ball from the real Agahnim, unfortunately.
What are these blue balls?
Yeah, he should get an energy from the real one now. It goes in cycles. This fight. He needs one more hit here. Yep, he's good to go. Yeah, that is a really rough boss fight. It is one of the most difficult ones to consistently do well. And handling those patterns takes a lot of practice.
That is an interesting Helma Hellway strat for ACM, the double dash. But now Blunt is dropping into Ganon. We'll have to keep an eye on those Ganon bats. A variable that's not cleaned up after the Armos fight might give him a bad bat pattern on phase 2. That may have been a triple for ACM on the phase 1 of the Aga fight.
Yep, if it was, he needs one more shot here to clean it up.
So where are these bats? Okay, yeah, that is not normal, I don't think.
Oh, and he doesn't get the double spin at the bottom here.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay,
oh, there we go.
Bats are not in the normal spot at all. Okay, looks like he had enough hits there anyway.
But still, down to 2.5 hearts. He can stand, I think, 1 hit from a fire bat will take him down to half a heart. He's got to be careful. Gonna get through phase 3. Just got to slash Ganon 1 time when he stops warping at each. And then gonna get a free spin out of this text box.
Ooh.
Ooh!
That was some awkward positioning there for Ganon to be. Blunt gets the torch glitch by lighting the left torch there before the right one goes out. It means he only has to relight the left one now for the remainder of this fight. Meanwhile, ACM going for the 1-on-1 here, takes a little bit of damage using the hook shot for iframes. Should have the 12 hits necessary to get out of this phase and onto the next one.
Yeah, as long as Blunt doesn't fall or take a hit, this is his race to win. 12 spins in phase 4. I think we're at 10. Nope.
There's the last hit right there.
So GG for Bluntbunny. Finishing up with a Speed Racing TV. Looks like you split late in the Speed Racing TV chat. So on the timer, finishing up with a 1:25:21, an official Speed Racing TV time of 1:25:53. Probably stopped to take a breath.
Yeah, perhaps. But yeah, does win the race there, taking it down. Meanwhile, ACM is on the last phase of the Ganon fight here, right behind him. Super, super close race for both of these guys. Very nice runs. ACM should just need a few more spins here.
And see if we can get Blunt in here for a post-race, and ACM as well, but robots don't do interviews.
Not to my knowledge, no. Looks like 06 sort up there, so 1:26:17 most likely for ACM, so less than a minute between these guys. GG to both. That was an excellent show, an excellent race to watch.
Fantastic run from both runners. Few mistakes scattered throughout for both of them, but nothing major. But an excellent showing here in the quarterfinals. A clear demonstration of how both of them have gotten this far. But Bluntbunny will be moving on to face, I think you said, the winner of TGH and Darkmind Demon.
That is correct.
Eddie. Yep. Which is fixing to be another real tight slugfest.
Yeah, this was just the very first of our quarterfinals matches. We have 3 more of this quality of race coming up for you throughout this week. Actually, the next 3 days in a row, all have quarterfinals races taking place. So tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, and then Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern as well, and then Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. We have the remainder of our quarterfinals matches coming up, so be sure to follow Speed Gaming, check out the schedule for ALTTP as to when these matches are taking place if you want to see some more high-quality NMG runs.
And speaking of high-quality NMG runs, we have Bluntbunny, who just provided one for us. Congratulations, sir, on advancing to the semis. What do you got to say for yourself?
Yeah.
Nice run.
Yeah, that was... It didn't feel like a good run, but it looked like it could have been a 124 without the Armos party.
How unexpected was getting 1 blue ball?
Well, I actually had the stream up this time because I wanted to see how many ACM was going to get. It looks like he got 1 as well. So, but yeah, it was unexpected. I'm just glad that me and him didn't have like an astronomical difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I was saying right before the fight too that you typically don't have the best results when it comes to Ag RNG and in tournament races and races in general, it seems. So I guess maybe reverse commentator curse, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you had a 5-cycle land mow, and ACM had a 6-cycle. So neither of you really had the light world that you wanted, but it was pretty close throughout. But then Aga 2.
Oh, so like he decided to give me the worst possible patterns in existence because he already knew this Ganon Star was awful. So I guess he just wanted to make things worse. Like I was just like, I don't know what to do here. And I feel like weird because I was just in Greenham's stream like 3 hours ago telling him how to fight Agahnim 2.
Confirmed, I still don't know how to fight him, so...
Apparently I don't either. I was like, it was just some patterns you just can't do anything about.
Yeah, it really does seem that way. It makes you feel just completely helpless as a runner sometimes, and it's incredible to me that even, you know, the most top tier of runners it happens to as well. So it makes me feel a little bit better, but also bad at the same time.
Yeah. I got a gold turtle rock, which was
No
really...
kidding. That's crazy. Nice, dude.
It wasn't like, it was just because I got the best Poke 2 RNG. It saves a bunch of time. So I closed it out with I think it looks like a 658 or something.
Very nice. Yeah, sub 7, really, really solid segment time for that. I think ACM said he was pretty close to his gold as well. So
yeah.
Well, it looks like you have the winner of TGH and DMD coming up. So
yeah. I don't really want to pick favorites, but I think my boy DMD is going to take that win. But it should be close because they're both like really, really good.
Yeah, TGH rolled out of bed and got himself a casual 124 the other day.
He's a god gamer for sure.
And DMD is, of course, you know, with the 124.01 PB, is one of the best to ever play the game as well. So between the two of them should be a solid match, and you got your work cut out for you. I know I checked the predictions to the brackets. I know a lot of people got you as one of the people to win this thing. So
if I can, I don't know. Like if I end up facing Eddie, that's gonna be like, I really would like to race Eddie, honestly, but because that'll be a good race, I think.
Yeah, that'll be a really cool matchup to see, because I know that, you know, you guys obviously have been playing, both of you have been playing the game for a very long time, and I know you guys are in each other's streams a lot and helping each other with strats, and yeah, and both of you guys are, I think, poised to be our next 123 runners, so I would definitely be stoked to see that matchup.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well,
I'm glad ACM didn't take a death this time. I think we were both less salty this race, because
yeah, no Vidi deaths, no cold stare deaths, none of that stuff.
Yeah,
I got to play it out naturally.
Yeah, the race we had last year, he died to Vidi, but I felt a Hera bomb jump, so I was behind for like the entire race up until he died to Vidi.
Well, with that, again, congratulations to you on advancing. Congratulations to ACM on a tournament well played. And it looks like that might actually be it for live programming tonight on Speed Gaming. But make sure that you come back tomorrow. They will be starting the day off with, I believe, the Bloodborne tournament as an earlier time slot, and then throughout the day you will be seeing Super Mario Odyssey. You will be seeing Luigi's Mansion. You're going to have another NMG race at 4 o'clock tomorrow, Wings of Vi, and then you will also be able to catch some Hat in Time later in the week. And my boy John Carls has been putting on the Mega Man 2 Game Boy tournament. You'll see some of that on Thursday. And then something called Randomizer, I guess, is back on the schedule later in the week. So
never heard of that. What's...
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But for all of your playing video game fast needs, make sure you follow all of the Speed Gaming channels. Here, the original or 2 through 5, and there is always either live racing or a podcast of some of the greatest hits of tournaments past. Thanks again to Feasel, Cyclone, and Feasel, who runs Speed Gaming, Cyclone, and Zelnus for helping us out tonight on the restream. Thank you to another recent top 20 runner, my boy Greenham, who has been doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the tournament, and for joining me on commentary tonight and making sure there's a smart person to talk. So thank you, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
And with that, we will be signing off. I have been and will continue to be Scrivo. Say goodnight, Greenham.
Good night, Greenham.
Good night.
Thanks for commentating, guys.
Rolling out.
Rolling out.
Rolling out.